Hello. Hello. Beck. Hi. Hi. I'm trying to get this chat like pulled up over here because it's a little bit easier. Hold please. How is everybody doing? I hope everyone's having a good Coronacation. Hi Rachel, hi Katie. So yeah, I figured that today we would make some witch's whiskey. We're gonna make some witch's whiskey. You know, surviving. Well, Katie, if you want to try to replicate this recipe, that'd be cool, because we're making witch's whiskey. So that's what we're doing today on the live, because why not? It's 2020, you know, might as well. Okay, so for the whiskey base, what you're going to get is some of this Jim Beam, or you can use Jack Daniel. I'm using this vanilla flavor just because the last time I made it, I didn't use a flavor and it was a little bit harsh. So yeah, if you want to get a flavored whiskey, I would recommend the vanilla. That way it's kind of like a nice undertone. And also vanilla is very calming and it's an aphrodisiac as well. And vanilla can be very magical. So just keep in mind the correspondence of the product that you're using. And then I'm also using this Jack Daniel's jar, which is cleared out. And there's already some herbs in this jar already, but we're going to get to work on this. So obviously make sure that you wash your hands if you plan on sharing this mixture with any loved ones or friends. I feel like that should go without being said, but it's 2020, so I feel like I have to say it based off of what we've already had gone on this year. We're gonna light this Palo Santo. And we're gonna add a little bit of this Palo Santo smoke inside of here. And we're gonna smoke out the inside of this jar. We're gonna light a little bit of this sage too. Thank you, Rachel. Oh, So the main ingredient in the witch's whiskey is going to be mugwort. And we're going to use most of this package here. So mugwort is very lightly psychotropic. Very lightly, very subtle. I'm gonna get a piece of paper for this. Let me show you a little trick. Hi, Haley. All right, get a little piece of paper. Because this is basically going to act as like our makeshift funnel. We're going to make a little bit of a mess, but we're going to try to make as little of a mess as possible. Okay. Yes, Haley. Making the juice. Oh, wow. Okay, let's try to pour a little bit of this whiskey in here. So right now here in the bottle, there's mugwort, which we're going to add more of that mugwort. And there's jasmine and rosemary and cinnamon bark. Okay, let's put some more mugwort in here. I apologize if my dogs, if you guys can hear my dogs. They always go crazy when I go live. All right, we're going to put a cap on this. We're going to give this a little bit of a shake. All right, we're going to add a little more mugwort to this. Also, I did not put this in the description, but just for the record, I'm not doing readings tonight on this live. So if you're interested in a reading, you can message me, but we're not pulling cards tonight. We're just making witch's whiskey and probably talking about the video I posted earlier to YouTube as well. 21st century cocktails, that's right. Trying to clean up a little bit as I go here. All right, and then the last thing that we're going to add to this is some hibiscus. This stuff smells so good. So yeah, like I said, this is a witch's whiskey. It's lightly psychotropic. If you are interested, just follow this recipe and you can make it yourself at home, and you can keep your quarantine spicy and interesting. Katie, we're going to talk about that in a second. We're going to talk about that in a second. If you watched my video, then you already know how I feel about that, but I haven't really addressed it in video form here on Facebook, so I'll probably say what I said again earlier that I said on YouTube. By the way, for those of you who might be making this, the more hibiscus that you add to this, the darker the color of the whiskey will become. Hibiscus is really nice at giving a really good aromatic fragrance. Hey Google, skip. I'm not feeling that, you guys. I'm not feeling that at all. But yeah, hibiscus is really nice for giving like a nice aroma. And it also gives a really good color to any sort of cocktail or tea that you might make. So this is what witches do during quarantine. We make magical cocktails. So this specific mix is you're gonna want this to sit for at least like a lunar cycle. That way it's able to really soak in and absorb all the properties of the herbs that we're adding to it. This is not gonna be ready right away. You're gonna want this to kind of ferment a little bit, or steep a little bit, maybe is the better word. All right, and then we're gonna pour a little bit of this whiskey back over these herbs. And we're kind of making this in layers. Okay. That one goes there. And we're gonna give this a little shake again. We're gonna put a little bit more of the smoke in here. Oh, thank you, Bailey. Thank ya, thank ya. Isn't that so pretty? All right, and we're gonna put a little bit more mugwort in here. So the herbs that are used are cinnamon and jasmine, hibiscus, cinnamon, jasmine, hibiscus. I'm using vanilla Jim Beam whiskey for this. The vanilla will kind of give it a little bit of sweetness, because last year when I made this for the coven, it was rough. But remember, this is witch's whiskey, so this is like medicine. You have to think of it that way. This is not like a cocktail that you're gonna sit and sip and enjoy. The main herb that you're gonna be using in this would be mugwort and ground up datura seeds. That's what's going to give this witch's whiskey like a light psychotropic effect. But I'm trying it this year with a vanilla whiskey, because like I said, last year I did not use a flavored whiskey. Oh look, you can see the smoke coming out of the jar. That's fun. I'm gonna pour the rest of this in here. and then we're gonna give this a shake again. And you just want to make sure that you shake this up really well so that way all the herbs get nice and emulsified in this mixture. So this is mostly our finished Witch's Whiskey bottle. So what we used, for those of you who are just now tuning in, because I see there's a lot of you guys coming in here now, so the base that you're going to use for this Witch's Whiskey is going to be this Jim Beam Vanilla. And this is an empty Jack Daniel bottle that I have. So I'm using it in this because we're putting herbs and smoke into the whiskey. So it makes it a lot easier to actually do it in layers. So you're not just going to buy some whiskey at the store and then dump all of your dry components into the bottle. Because there won't be space or room for that, so you might have to drink a little bit of it if you're going to do that. But you can totally take this bottle here and then like put the stopper in your kitchen sink and fill it up with hot water and Dawn dish soap and just let this soak for about an hour, and all of this labeling will come off and you will have a completely clear glass jar like so. And then you'll probably want to put a label on here with what it is and what date that you made it. That way you don't forget. But yeah, this is the Witch's Whiskey. So you'll need a whiskey base. Like I said, I'm using the vanilla as a base because last year when I made this, I did not use a flavored base. And the herbs give it a very strong medicinal taste. Which, remember, like, this is a spiritual whiskey. This is a witch's whiskey, so it's not supposed to be something that you're going to sip on and necessarily enjoy. This is something that you're going to be taking shots of or using for offerings to the spirits. This is not something that you're just going to be putting, you know, in a cocktail and enjoying. I mean, you could, but that's not necessarily what it's intended for. So the flavor components aren't necessarily relevant to that. The herbs that are put in there are like the mugwort and the crushed datura are mostly lightly psychotropic herbs that cause hallucinations and psychic visions. So that's why we're using those herbs. The main herb being mugwort. You want to be very careful with putting datura or moonflower in anything that you're going to be ingesting because it is very poisonous and can kill you. So just make sure that you're very careful. And then the other herbs that I've put in there are more so for flavor as well as protection, because we want to be careful with what spirits we're interacting with when we are, you know, dabbling in plant medicine. So the rosemary that is in there and the cinnamon that is in there, as well as the jasmine that is in there and the hibiscus that is in there, are more of like a feature in the Witch's Whiskey and not necessarily the main herbal staple. And the hibiscus is also to give it a nice aroma as well as the smoke that is added into this. And then I'm probably going to top this off with fresh storm water. So you can collect water from storms, or you can collect water the night of the full moon and you can add this into this. I did not do that for our past full moon lunar eclipse in Sagittarius because I felt like, you know, the whole aspect of Sagittarius and it being about conquering and it being the house of philosophy and truth and travel isn't necessarily what I wanted put into the whiskey. So that's why I didn't collect any water. But we've been having a lot of really great thunderstorms and downpours lately, and you can collect that rainwater in a sterile container and, you know, bring it in a timely manner, and you can ingest that or you can bathe in that, and that will kind of add to the properties in the whiskey. So this is mostly done. All I need to do is top this off with some storm water, and then this will be sitting on the altar, steeping or fermenting until the time that the coven, until we go on a trip. So, but I wanted to share this recipe with you guys. This recipe was shared with me, and I wanted to pass it along. I know that a lot of us are in quarantine and, you know, you might be kind of bored. So you can make this yourself at home if you want to have a fun, you know, little quarantine 2020 road trip without leaving your house, if you know what I mean. So yeah, that's the whiskey. Like I said too, if you're interested, You can always message me and I can give you the recipe. While I'm live, I probably won't be responding to messages, but when I get off live, if you send me a message, I'd be happy to hook you up with the recipe if you missed it. Also, this live, I didn't put it in the description, but we're not pulling cards tonight. I'm not doing readings tonight. I'm purely just making this whiskey and talking to you guys and checking in with you. And also, I want to address here on Facebook the mess in the witchy community and the drama in the witchy community right now. So, I don't know if you guys have seen what's been floating around the social medias as of lately, but it's a little ridiculous, and it kind of is a little bit sad to me how many people are really feeding into all this hype. You know, like the drama and the controversy and the ridiculousness and the bandwagoning is at an all-time high. So, I don't know. I don't even know where to start. Give me just a second, though. Hold, please. Okay, I'm back. I'm back. Okay, so I want to address some of what is going on in the witchy community right now per the social media. So if you're on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook or Twitter for that matter, and you're a part of the witchy community, you've probably already seen this going around. There's been numerous articles posted about this, and there's been a lot of people just like putting their 2 cents in and just co-signing basically on what everyone else is saying, which is unfortunate that we're not doing our research and that we're not actually fact-checking anything or looking into anything whatsoever, and we're just blatantly and blindly just agreeing with what anyone and everyone has to say in the community. And I'm especially talking about people who have a platform, who share something and all their followers just yes man it and just bandwagon off of it without actually really looking into anything. They're just like, oh, here's this person with a platform and they believe this, so I must believe this too. No, honey. No, that's not what we're doing. That is not the tea. So what I'm referring to, for those of you who did not see my rant video on YouTube earlier, is, this is so ridiculous. I don't even like saying it because it's so ridiculous. But okay, so on TikTok, there is a kind of subgroup or a subcategory called witch talk. Okay, now as a witch, as a HP, I think it's great that we have multiple platforms to better serve the community and to help guide people in the craft and on this spiral path, because there's not enough of that. And so I think the more people sharing their experiences and their insight and their spiritual practices, that's a wonderful thing. However, a lot of misinformation also gets spread, and people also chase a lot of clout and notoriety, and they want their 15 minutes of fame. So on TikTok, there was a individual, which I'm completely spacing on like her username, but if you Google search drama witch talk, this issue will come up. And I guess allegedly someone commented, which this person who I'm talking about has not revealed their like name or anything. So we're mostly just going off of what some random person on Witch Talk says or claims. And so they said that someone commented on their video. You guys, someone commented on their Witch Talk video that they were going to hex the Fae. Yeah, they were going to hex the Fae. That's where this ridiculousness starts. So they're going to hex the Fae, is what they said on this person's video. And the person whose content was commented on by this person basically just tried to shut it down immediately and was like, oh my gosh, you can't hex the Fae, don't hex the Fae, right? And so this got out there in the interwebs of Witch Talk, and since then, a lot of other people on TikTok, aka on Witch Talk, have been making videos basically saying why you shouldn't hex the Fae, and how hexing the Fae is going to give you bad karma, how hexing the Fae is going to curse you or curse your bloodline, okay, how hexing the Fae goes against the laws of nature, okay, and how you shouldn't hex the Fae. So basically, there's just been tons of people making video after video after video talking about how you shouldn't hex the Fae. However, per my own research and per who I've talked to, there's not any actual real receipts or evidence whatsoever about the Fae actually being hexed. There's no evidence of that anywhere. There's no evidence of that in the physical. I haven't seen it. If you have evidence of that, I would be honored if you would send me the receipts, because I have not seen it and I am confused and I am disappointed. There's no evidence of that in the astral at all. I sense absolutely nothing. And there's no evidence of that, most importantly, in the digital. And the reason why I say most importantly is because it is 2020, right? And within witchcraft, we are having a huge emergence of new practitioners, regardless of your cultural or lingual or geographic background. This is something that is found, you know, globally, the craft, regardless of who or what or why you might believe in. The practice of this has really had a significant boom. I would say especially in my generation, especially in the past 10 years. That being said, also, Witch Talk is primarily people statistically under the age of 35. And let's be honest, the Four Powers, the Magi, for those of you who don't know what the Four Powers, the Magi is, and I know that not all traditions follow this, but the Four Powers of the Magi would be to know, to will, to dare. And then the fourth power is to keep silent. So that's like a witch's code of ethics that some witches follow. I'm not saying all witches follow the Four Powers of the Magi. However, as someone who does follow the four powers of the Magi, there is absolutely no fourth power going on in 2020. And what I mean by fourth power is to keep silent. I have been on Witch Talk and I have seen witches posting their active spell work, not spell work from 2 weeks ago, not an offering to their god or goddess or their spirits or their ancestor veneration, not just a cute little aesthetic post, but I have seen people posting their active spell work on social media, which is a pretty big, blatant boundary crossing of the fourth power of the Magi. So if witches were really out here hexing the Fae, honey, it would be all over the digital. There would be receipts, right? All we have right now are memes about this. That's all we have. But yet, all these big names in the community and all these people who have a platform are taking a stand for the Fae, are hashtagging "Don't Hex the Fae," and are basically being like, "Oh my gosh, that's such bad karma, da 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 da," which we can talk about the karma comments too, because I'm pretty sick and tired of people cherry picking Hinduism and wanting to talk about karma, but not wanting to talk about dharma. So we can talk about that too, but that's a whole other video. Yes, it is. This new moon in Cancer has me tiffed. Okay? Tiffed. And I'm getting hot just talking about this. Oh, Kali Ma, keep me safe. So if you're just tuning in, I'm talking about how someone commented on, basically said that their ex was part Fae and that they were going to hex the Fae. And since then, tons of people have made like reaction videos to this and have been like, "Oh my gosh, don't hex the Fae, da 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 da, like that's bad karma, that's so bad for you, like your bloodline will be cursed, the Fae don't mess around, doing that is asking for ill will." Okay. So allegedly, the original person whose content was commented on, which is allegedly because I have not seen that and I cannot find the original content where this spawned. However, we're just going to humor and say that this really did happen and that this person's not just making it up. Because I'm not going to like point fingers. But now it has turned into a much larger thing. Because like I said, people are making reactions to this and are begging people not to hex the Fae. And it's turned into now that allegedly this group of witches is hexing the moon now. So it went from one person who said they were going to hex the Fae to now there's a group of witches talking about hexing the moon. The moon? Now I did say earlier, and for those of you who missed this, I did say earlier, you know, TikTok, specifically Witch Talk, the platform I'm talking about, like the average age is like 35 and under, with the highest users being between the ages of like 18 and 25. So we're talking about a lot of young people, and young people tend to make very wild claims and say some crazy ass stuff. So I'm not holding it against the kids by any means. I've seen some of you reply back and be like, "Oh my gosh, they're just kids. You shouldn't be so harsh, da 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 da," whatever. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that this is absolutely not a thing. This is not a thing. Hexing the Fae is not a thing. Banishing the Fae, or calling upon the Fae, or working with the Fae folk, or the fair folk, or researching the Fae folk, or leaving offerings to the Fae folk, or warding against the Fae folk, that's a thing. Hexing the Fae, that is not a tea, that is not a thing. And furthermore, this rumor mill, this big occult game of telephone, that now people are hexing the moon, no they're not. No they're not. Stop posting online these ridiculous statuses that people are sharing, saying that witches are hexing the moon. No, witches are not hexing the moon. The moon is not being hexed, you guys. It's not. It's a big occult game of telephone. It's not a real thing. At all. And like I said, there is no evidence of this in the physical, the astral, or the digital. It's literally a bunch of just foolery and rumors. Like, it's not a thing at all. Most witches who walk the spiral path, who work magic, weave the energies of the moon to some degree into their practice. Whether you do certain workings on a waxing moon, a waning moon, a full moon, a new moon, a dark moon, a blue moon, no witch is out here hexing the moon. And furthermore, you can't hex the moon. That's like saying that you're going to hex gravity. It does not make sense. And you are making a complete ass of yourself within this community, and also people outside of this community who are seeing all of this drama and all of this foolery go down. I have seen even people outside of our community on the platform YouTube making videos about this. You know, a lot of Christians and atheists literally laughing at witches because they're talking about hexing them. Like, we look like fools as a community, and the witches who are spreading this propaganda are not separated from the witches who are not spreading this propaganda. There are witches on social media acting so upset and so hurt, like they have their feelings hurt, like it's a personal attack against them, that allegedly witches are hexing the moon because their patron goddess is lunar or solar focused, right? Like they're a priestess of Diana or of Artemis or whatever. Here's the thing, baby. You can believe whatever you want to believe in. And I'm very open-minded. Very open-minded. It is of my opinion that the moon is not a goddess. There are goddesses associated with the moon, yes. Just like there, believe it or not, there are goddesses associated with the sun, too. However, the moon is the moon. The moon is not necessarily a primordial being. There are primordial beings and spirits and gods and guides and whatever associated with that, but hexing the moon is not the same thing as hexing a goddess, and hexing a goddess does not exist either. That is not a T in the spiral path. That is not found within witchcraft. And yes, to a certain extent, witchcraft is a very intuitive practice, and from one witch to the next witch, your practice can look extremely different, and you should always follow your intuition. And you should always follow your internal dialogue and your internal compass and your own guides and your own ancestors and tap into your spiritual practices. However, your intuition is not telling you to hex the moon, and your intuition is not telling you to hex the fae. So my opinion is that this is completely made up propaganda that literally is not happening at all. And if it, let's just assume or humor for a second that it was to happen, it would literally do nothing. It would do nothing. Hexing the moon is like the equivalent of being a young kid and packing your suitcase and running away from home. Like, it's sad, it's embarrassing, it's pathetic. It's not going to do anything. It's not going to do anything at all. So, there is no hexing the moon. And like I said earlier about hexing the fae, there really is no hexing the fae either. I mean, this video is not even supposed to be like an informational video on the fae folk, because we're talking about an umbrella term of fae. It's not an individual fae, it's an entire genre. I'm sorry I'm ranting now, but I'm just irritated. I'm irritated because as someone in this local community of witches and as a high priestess and as someone who, I interact a lot with our community here in Indianapolis, and I have seen so many witches share this propaganda and give this propaganda like relevancy and clout and recognition, like this is a real thing. Like people telling people, oh my gosh, no, don't hex the fae. You can't hex the fae. That's so terrible. Why bother? Like, why bother warning people not to do something that is literally impossible? Why are we even humoring this? as individuals in this community, why are we humoring the fact that anyone could even hex the moon? Why are we humoring the fact that you could hex the Fae? That's, like I said, that's not a tea. If you are having a Fae issue, yes, you can banish the Fae folk. You can leave offerings to the Fae folk. You can work with Fae folk. There's a whole Fae folk branch of magic within the craft and within the spiral. That is a real thing. And when I'm talking about Fae too, let me just say this. This goes well beyond the Emerald Isles, in my opinion. The Fae are not just there. Fae are found all over. There are indigenous spirits of the land on the land that we are on right now that could fall under the umbrella of Fae. Okay? Also, the Jinn, the D-J-I-N-N, the Jinn, the Arabian, Islamic, Quranic spirits of smokeless fire, this can also fall under the Fae folk. But yeah, we don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about that. We just want to talk about Tinkerbell. We just want to talk about Tinkerbell when we're talking about the Fae. Right? We want to talk about Tinkerbell. In her little green dress and her pixie dust. We don't want to talk about indigenous nature spirits found here in the Americas. We don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about the Jinn, the spirits of smokeless fire, even spoken of in the Quran. We don't want to talk about that. We don't want to talk about the hobgoblins or the red caps or the selkies. We don't want to talk about that. We just want to talk about Tinkerbell when we're talking about the Fae. Okay. You guys, I can't with this. I can't. So yeah, long story short, no one is hexing the Fae. It's not a thing. And let me address this too, while I'm still on here and while I'm still pissed and while I'm still heated. I feel like my Kali Ma tattoo is on fire right now. Let me just say this. This whole baby witch thing, you know, because people are saying, oh, baby witches are hexing the moon. Baby witches are hexing the Fae. Baby witch this, baby witch that. Let me say this too. I don't like that term personally. Now, I will say that if you, as an individual, want to call yourself a baby witch, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. If you want to call yourself a baby witch, that is fine. I do not have an issue with that. If you want to address yourself that way or introduce yourself that way, there's no problem with that, because baby witch means, it implies that you are a baby in the craft. So your physical age means literally nothing. You can be 15 years old, 25 years old, 45 years old, and you could be a baby witch. Baby witch just means that you are a baby in the craft. That's all that means. But what I'm sick and what I'm tired of is people using baby witch, like this term, like it's some sort of millennial insult. Like it's really snatching wigs off of people's heads. That's what I'm not okay with. Exactly. Exactly. Power is power. So baby witch to me, most of the time when I see people using this term, it's other people talking about other people. I don't typically see people always addressing themselves as a baby witch. And like I said, if you claim that for yourself, if you're new to the spiral path, if you're new to the craft, and if you identify with the term baby witch, that's totally fine, and I'm not talking about you. What I'm talking about is our patronizing, condescending elders calling other witches baby witches because maybe they don't follow a tradition, or maybe they are not educated in the craft. Maybe they haven't done a year and a day. Maybe they don't even know what a year and a day is. Maybe they have not been initiated. Maybe they're not a part of a coven. Maybe they don't even know a high priestess. Maybe they are the only witch they know in the physical. So you cannot fault someone for not knowing what they don't know. So this whole baby witch thing, it's played out in my opinion, and there's no reason for that. Because when there are new people, and there are hundreds of thousands of new people of baby witches stepping into the craft every single day. Every single day. And I know that's going to make a lot of people mad too. But there are tons of new people stepping into the craft every single day, regardless of your political background, your orthodoxy, or your orthopraxy, or the culture that you come from, or your language, your first language, or your geographic location. There are tons of people stepping into this every single day. And being condescending to people, or trying to gatekeep the craft is really played out, and it's canceled, and we're done with that. Because we should be opening up our community. I'm not talking about individual groups. I'm not talking about individual covens. I'm saying the wider witchcraft community should be a safe and an open place for everybody to enter. There is no gatekeeping in this house. There is no gatekeeping here. Yeah, it's very divisive, and it is alienation, Haley, and I agree. So, you know, seeing these people shit on baby witches, to me, makes me kind of sad, because not only is it condescending, and that's going to push new practitioners away from the community that is already marginalized, but it's just not necessary, and we don't need it. And you know, even as someone who's been in the craft for, what, maybe a decade now in the craft, comparatively, that's not that long of a time. However, there are baby witches that I meet all the time who really broaden my horizon, and who really bring an entirely fresh perspective that is unburdened or uninfluenced by anything else. You know? And sometimes as witches, especially witches who have walked around the spiral multiple go-arounds, we can get kind of stuck in our ways sometimes. And I want to address, you know, the witches also who have been on the spiral for a long time as well, or who have been around the spiral a while. I know it gets frustrating to see people, you know, bastardizing our traditions, or simply making witchcraft an aesthetic instead of a spiritual practice and something that is incredibly sacred to most of us. I know that's frustrating, but I think that most people honestly just don't know better. And until people know better, they're not going to do better. So I think it's important to kind of, especially leadership in the occult community, I think it's important for us to make the time for these baby witches and educate newcomers about what the craft is, and also what the craft is not. And if you're not really willing to have those conversations, then you don't really need to be in a place of leadership for the community. How about that? So, in a nutshell, witches, let me get off my soapbox. Okay, I've been on here long enough. Witches are not hexing the fae. Witches are not hexing the moon. This is not a thing. This is not something that is found within the craft or the spiral or any traditions. I also don't personally believe that this is even happening in the physical, the digital, or the astral. If anyone does have receipts of this happening and has, you know, proof, because it's 2020 and everyone's breaking the fourth power, if this was happening, people would have posted videos about it. I see witches all the time posting their active candle work, their active spell work. I see witches all the time posting their actualization, manifestation of their sigils constantly. So if this was happening, especially by baby witches, right, they would be posting this on social media. They're not posting this on social media because it's not a thing, because no one's doing it. No one's hexing the fae. And like I said, that's not a tea. And no one is hexing the moon either. The moon. No. No one's doing that either. And then now there's more rumors starting that now witches are hexing the sun or the underworld. I'm like, this is really an interesting game of telephone in the witchcraft community. That's what this is. This is a very interesting game of telephone that has started with one person allegedly commenting on someone else's content. They're going to hex the fae, and now we have this. And like I said, I wouldn't even buy into it. I wouldn't give it any attention because it's not worth your attention. So I'm going to leave with this. If you are a baby witch, if you are someone just coming to the spiral path, if you are someone, you know, just starting this journey, you are welcome here. You are more than welcome to come into this community. And do not ever let anybody tell you that you aren't shit just because you're a baby witch or just because you're just starting your path on the spiral. Do not let anybody gatekeep you from what you can and cannot do. We are all powerful creatures of magic and manifestation, and we are all spiritual beings having a physical experience. So I call on you to step back into this power and reclaim it for yourself. Because chances are, as a witch, you've been a witch before. You might be stepping back onto the spiral path in this lifetime, but chances are you've walked this path before. And you're just coming back onto the path in this lifetime. It's not that you're a baby witch. It's that you might be, you know, new to the spiral on this lifetime. And I guarantee you, the more that you walk this spiral path, the more that these practices and these traditions will come back to you through your ancestral inheritance and your dreams and your intuition. All of us have to start somewhere. No one is born knowing everything. And even people who have been on the spiral path for 15, 25, 45 years are still constantly learning, because this is a practice. You are never a master. You are a practitioner, and that's why it's called a practitioner. Now, my advice as well to the more seasoned practitioners, because I want to address all you guys as well, not just the baby witches, right? I have seen a lot of you, okay, sharing this. I have mad love for my community, and I have mad love for my city, okay? And when Jasmine Ambrosia, when I come out here and I do events or rituals, everything I do is for the girls, the goths, and the gays, and for the witches of this community, okay? But some of you guys who have been around the spiral a couple of times, y'all should really know better. I'm just gonna say it. You guys should know better. And I see you out there. I see you sharing this. I see you making comments about this. I see you out here shitting on these baby witches. I see you out here being condescending. I see you out here gatekeeping. And I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of that. I don't endorse that. I don't support that at all. If it wasn't for these baby witches, the craft would literally not continue. So if you want the magic to continue through your own bloodline, whether that be your literal blood or whether that be your chosen blood, you need to show some respect. And you need to stop shitting on these baby witches, because these are the witches who are going to be carrying these traditions, these practices on. So why not take some time and show some respect? And spreading this propaganda is not doing us any favors. So that's my 2 cents. I hope you guys enjoy this psychic whiskey here. And if you want the recipe, like I said, just DM me. And that's my 2 cents on the whole, you know, witches, hexing, whatever. And also don't forget too that Black Lives Matter. And don't let this distract you from the real issues at hand, because there are people actively dying in our own city right now. Okay? That's a problem we can address, and that's a problem that we can be talking about. All right? So I hope all of you have a great rest of your night. Take care, be safe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.